Good morning. How to complete Form 1065, U.S. Return of Partnership Income. So if you are an LLC or a partnership, you will complete Form 1065. So for 2020, how do you complete your business tax return Form 1065? I will recommend it that you download the instructions to 1065 as well, so that as you complete the form line by line, if you are confused about a line, you go on the instruction document and look for that line and read about it. So depending on your situation, the instruction will guide you to complete it the right way. So on page 3, who must file 1065? So you can read about it to see if, depending on the business that you have, what is. And while we are here, we can talk about limited partner. So a limited partner is a partner in a partnership formed under a state partnership law. So you can read about limited partners and general partners because the issue will come again. So limited liability company, if that's an LLC you have, you can read about it. A limited liability company is an entity formed under the state law by filing article organization as LLC. So an LLC may be classified for federal income tax purposes as a partnership. And I thought they will say more about how to classify the partners. But let's get started. So first on the first page 1, make sure you put your business name under name of partnership. You put your business address, your city and state, zip code as well. So on the right side, you'll have employer identification numbers. You add it there. That's your EIN number for your business. Date your business started, it'll go on in the box E. And then the total assets. So depending on how you answer the question 4 on Schedule B, I believe page 2 or 3, you may not need on page 2, you may not need to complete that box or item F. So does the partner satisfy all 4 of the following? So if your income is less than, your total revenue is less than $250,000 for the year, and your total asset for the partnership is less than $1 million, and you are going to give the partners their Schedule K1 on time, and you are now required to file Schedule M3, then yes is the box you will check. Therefore, you are now required to complete Schedule M at the end of the form, Schedule M1 and M2 at the end of the form on page 5, and item F on page 1 of 1065, or item L on Schedule K1. Let's see if you have Schedule K1 open here. We can just go and look for it. And Schedule K1, let's take this one, item L. And even though Schedule K1, item L may not be required depending on your gross revenue, you could add it to it if you want to track the partner's capital accounts analysis. But once again, on your IRS form, you may not be required to do that if your answer is yes to that question. So that means if your revenue is less than $250,000, the total assets of the business, you don't need to disclose it to IRS on item F. On the left side, you have item A, principal business activity. So you'll write the business activity, and depending on how you complete the form to request EIN number, they might even ask business activity there. So if that's what you chose, it might be what you'll add. And if you didn't choose anything, then let's see the publication toward the end. Let me just enter CC here. Yes, the end of the instruction for form 1065 has the business activity code. So you can scroll to see what will work well for your business, and I'm not going to dwell on it much. But if you are in a retail business, you sell online, first you can go to retail, and you can read how you choose your activity is the one that generates the most revenue for you. And I'm just going to take an example, and I can just take the real estate, which we have on the form, but is the real estate, and I just use other related activity. But the dwelling residential will have worked well. But then if I wanted to do more than one in the same category, then that's why I went with other. But if you are a retail, and you sell online, you don't have brick and mortar, retail is on the left side. I think it started from the right side, the right column. Retail trade, they have stores and clothing stores, sporting good, general merchandise store, but then they have non-store retailer. So if you sell online, you don't have a brick and mortar store, you'll choose your number from the retail non-store retailer. But if you choose one while you are requesting your EIN number for your business, you might want to stick to that. So then the principal business activity will go on line A, and C, business code number, will go on line on item. In item, it will be item C, and you can get that from the instruction for form 1065 page CC, page 59, or you can look in your file to see what you put down as business code when you requested your EIN. So item G. So if that's your initial return, you'll check it. If that's your final return, you'll check 2 as well. You'll check 2 instead of, you'll check 2. Otherwise, if it's not the first time or the last time, you don't check anything on for G. And then item H, you have cash, accrual, and if you are using accrual, you check accrual. If you are using cash, you check cash. So that usually on your initial return, you'll check 1, and that's what you should stick with. To change it, you have to file, you have to complete a form to request IRS approval, believe. And item I, the number of Schedule K1, that's the number of partners you have, so you'll add it. Item J, so are you check if Schedule C and M3 are attached. So if you are going to add Schedule M3 or C, you'll check it, otherwise you leave it blank. And pretty much Schedule M3, you can look in the instructions, but I believe is if your income is over a certain dollar amount, $1 million or 10 millions, I believe a million, but we can just scroll down. That's why it's okay to just open the instructions, and as you get to an area that you are confused, you just read about it, and you can read about whether you should enter decimal point or round. And I believe you have is advised to round, but read it for your own understanding. And we are still looking for M3. Or when you scroll down on page 10, they will tell you how you'll assemble the return. So that's something you'll come back to when you are done with the return, to see in what order you'll put the forms. And if something is important to you, you want it to come back to, you can highlight it. And if you just start out, chances that you won't need schedule M3. So it's 10 million or more is the amount reported on line schedule L line 4. So if your total asset is 10 million or more, you'll be required to complete schedule M3 and attach it. Otherwise, you leave it blank. So that means you have 10 million for to add schedule M3 and $250,000 in revenue to complete schedule L, M1, M2, and total assets in item F and item L on schedule K1. So everything under that, those part of the form are not required to complete. So check if you are going to aggregate activities or group activities. So, and the 2 is for passive activities, and the 1 is for activity that are at risk. So you can read about it as well. Pretty much, if you have multiple activities under one business, you can complete the form, but then you'll have attachment for schedule K, and that will pretty much detail each activity, income and loss, like revenue and expenses, or income and loss under each activity, so that, and then you'll have that for the partner schedule K1 supporting document as well. But if you group them, then you may not need to detail them there, I believe, but then the instructions will tell you more about it. So whether you group or not, you'll just file 11065, and the attachment is where you'll talk about the activities in detail. You will have an attachment for the income and expense, for the income and profit or loss, if you choose not to group them. So now, page 1, you complete page 1 if your business, if the activity conducted is a trade or a business activity. So those information, revenues and expense from trade and business activities will go on page 1. If you have a product, physical product that you sell, you will need form 1125A to calculate the cost of goods sold. And a look at form 1125A, you'll have the inventory at the beginning of 2020, purchases during 2020, cost of good, cost of labor, if you have any. It's not your labor. It's if you contracted people to produce the order, and their labor is tied to the purchases. If you add it here, you won't add it back on the 1065. Just keep that in mind. And then other costs and the total, you'll have inventory at the end of the year. So the cost of goods sold will be the inventory at the end of the year minus like the total beginning of inventory and purchases minus inventory at the end of 2020 will give you the cost of goods sold. And that cost of goods sold will go on page 1 of your 1065. And you'll remember to have the business name and the employer identification number, and you'll pretty much check if first is first in, first out type of inventory system you have. So for the cost of goods, so and then you will put the cost of goods sold on line 2, and you'll remember to attach that form as well, 1125. So you'll have the gross receipt or the revenue or the sales on line 1A. If you have return or allowances and allowances, you'll add the to line B, 1B, and the gross profit will just be, you'll just follow the instructions. It's not line 2 from line C, and line C will be line 1 minus line B. So if you have farm, so profit or loss from farm, that means you'll calculate Schedule F Form 1040, and pretty much you just follow every single one of those things. So if you have Form 4797 to complete Part 2 line 17, information should route it to line 6. So other income, total income will be line 1C, all the line 3, the gross profit, total to line 7. So that will give you your total income or loss, because you have some income or loss from other forms that come here. So you'll have that, and then you'll have deductions related to the activities that whose revenue you reported up under income. So you'll have the salaries and wages other than the partners, and you'll have repair and maintenance, bad debts, rent, like office for your office, taxes and licenses, interest, everything here related to the activities whose revenue you put up. You'll put the expenses here. If you have depreciation, and that's the first year, you'll complete Form 4562, and we have how to depreciate, how to complete Form 4562, depreciation and amortization. We have the playlist Form 2020 Form 4562, depreciation and amortization, where we have videos related to how to depreciate an asset. If you place an asset in service in 2020, then you'll file Form 4562, and the depreciation will go here on line 16. But now if you claim any session 179, it should not be included. It will go on Schedule K1, because partners will report that on their 1040. So, and any depreciation reported on Form 1125A or elsewhere on the return. So, and then you just read every single line, deduction, expenses, to see if you have that type of expense. If you don't, you just leave the space blank. If you do, you add it, or you read the instruction to see if that applies to you. And then you have tax and payment. So interest due under, you just read those to see if you are required, if something that apply to you. Otherwise, you leave it blank. And as you scroll down, if you are a preparer paid to file the return, then you'll make sure you complete pay preparator use only. But if you are the business owner filing for your business, you leave pay preparator use only blank. And when you print it out, you'll sign it, you'll date it. And you can choose no if you don't want IRS to discuss your information with the preparator. It's not the firm, it's the preparator. With this form with the preparator, then you check no for the boss at the right side of sign. And you'll move to Schedule B. So if you are wondering whether you should complete Part 1 or Schedule K, so we are going to skip Schedule B a little bit, but the thing is, if you have activities that are considered portfolio income, or you have activities that are passive to the partnership and the partners, they will go on Schedule K. So passive activity is an activity that is passive to the partners but not the business. So I will have my notes as an article on our blog ninasoap.com, and you can read the instructions as well. So they can let's go to the instructions, but you need to find out what is passive and what is active. If you have a business where you sell products, that's a business. That's an active business activity. If you, the partner, the partner didn't materially participate in it, that's a passive income or loss for you, the partner. But it is a business for the partnership. Therefore, you'll put your revenues and expenses on page 1 of 1065, and you'll put the detail on Schedule K. Once for the partners, when they are filing their 1040, they will choose whether they materially participate or not, so that if that's a loss, they could claim the loss against active income, or if that's a loss from a passive, if that's a passive loss, then they cannot claim the passive loss against an active income. So, and by default, rental property is classified as passive. But it's good to just take your time to read it and see what will work. So generally, a passive activity include activity that involve the conduct of a trade or business if the partner doesn't materially participate in the activity, and B, all rental activity defined later regardless of the partner's participation. So that's a passive activity. But it's good to take your time and read well on it. But just sometimes it can be confusing. But if the partner does not participate in the business, but that's a business where you sell products, that's a business, and that should be on page 1. But as the partners that didn't participate, they cannot claim the loss. If it turn out to be a loss, they cannot claim the loss against their active income like job. But if that's a passive activity, including rental property, you won't fill page 1. You won't complete page 1 of 1065. You will complete Schedule K instead. or if you have both, revenue and expenses from active business activities and passive activities, then some will go on schedule K1 and some will go on page 1. So we already talked about page 1, what you will put on page 1. So make sure you don't put anything investment related on page 1. It is now an active business activities, unless you are a trader and that's your trade. So even so, you might want to read the instructions to see what really qualify. So it has to be a trade or a business to go on page 1. So now let's talk about Schedule B. Schedule B, take your time to read it. You have the questions to answer here. So if that's if that's an L.L.C, domestic one, you check 1C, or you check which one apply. And then you read to see if that's yes or no, colon you should check. So if you have partners that own 50% or more of the partnership, you need Schedule B1. And Schedule B1 is a schedule. Let's see if we have an example here. That's a schedule that pretty much you will state the partner's name, their social security number, and the ownership percentage that they have in the business. And that's pretty much it. Is not complicated, but it comes with a little instructions to help you understand it. If the partner own 50% or more of the partnership, then Schedule B1 is not needed. So yes or no questions, just read through and complete every single one without forgetting. So you'll read 4, and 4 we already read it, to see if that's yes or no. So chances are, if you just start off your business, the answer might be yes. And you'll still continue the questions, and I believe it could be like 2 questions that will be yes. But if you have multiple questions that are yes, if there is a form that is required, if a question is yes, you make sure you complete that form and add it. If you have multiple forms to complete, maybe using a software might be useful, because when you enter the information once, the software will just duplicate it to the appropriate form that it should go to. So that's the usefulness of a software. But if your business is a few years old, or you just started, you can complete it by hand easily, as many of the form stated on the form may not be required for you to complete. So just make sure you complete every single one. And there is something I've been looking for. There is a SPA. Okay, that will be, did you make any payment in 2020 that will require you to file Form 1099? If that's no, then you don't check anything at the bottom. But if that's yes, did you or will you file 1099? So if that's yes and you'll file, you check yes. So but if it's no, then you don't need to check anything on the B, 16B. So that's something to keep an eye on for as well. And 1099, you need say if you pay $600 or more to a contractor or a lawyer, so you will need to give them 1099. So designation of partnership representative. So if 25 you say no, so you'll enter your name if you are the one representing the business, your name, the street, zip code, phone number, and then you pretty much continue and finish up Schedule B questions. And remember, if is no, make sure you check no. If you check yes and it say to add a form, you'll add the form. If they say to add the number from a line from a form, you'll do that. Just read the question and answer it. So now Schedule K. Well, if you have a rental property, your information won't go on page 1. It'll go on Schedule K, line 2. But you'll complete Form 8825 and you'll attach it to the form as well. So let's take a look at Form 8825, rental real estate income and expense of a partnership or a S corp. So you'll enter your business name, your business identification number, and pretty much you read it to enter the information required, and you will complete it. And a lot of times a form will require you to file another form, but you will complete your ADA 25, and the information from ADA 25 will be needed on your 1065 if you have a rental property. If you don't have a rental property, you don't need Form 8825. You just leave that line 2 blank. So if you have income and expenses on page 1, you'll calculate the if you have revenue and expenses there, you'll calculate your business income or loss. So that will pretty much be line A minus line 21. So that will go on line 22, and that will go on Schedule A. That will go on Schedule K, line 1. And if you did not put any information on page 1, then your Schedule K, line 1 will remain blank. And you have to remember this one is real estate related. Because it's real estate related, you can see the principal activity. Therefore, page 1 is left blank. And information went on Schedule K. But because there was no rental income or loss, Form 8825 was now completed and line 2 remained blank. If you have rental income from other rental activities that are now real estate, they'll go on line 3 with expenses included on B and C. So just read it and answer it. So interest income, and that's where we put our number. Interest income could be from the bank, it could be CD, could be portfolio. So interest income will go on line 5. Dividend and dividend equivalents, ordinary dividend, qualified dividend, dividend equivalents, they'll go on line 6, A, B, C, whichever is related to your situation. So royalties, if you have royalties income, it'll go on line 7. If that's all your income was during the year, then that's line 7. And in this case, it's just line 5, interest. And it was related to real estate. So, and you just read every single line to see what type of data you have that you will put in, otherwise you leave the space blank. So now deduction related to information you enter on Schedule K. You have section 179 deduction. So if you claim section 179 deduction, you'll attach form 4562. So every year you claim section 179, you have to attach form 4562. And it will go on line 12. And I said that earlier, your section 179 that you claim won't go on page 1. It will go on Schedule K, so that the partners can report that on their 1040 or wherever it will go before you show up on the form that they will file with Schedule K1. That's what I wanted to say. And But if you depreciate an item, that should be on page 1. The depreciation will go on page 1, but section 179 deduction will go on schedule K, line 12. Contribution, and you have interest, investment interest expense, and there is a lot going on line 13, and it's very important you read line 13. If your information will go on schedule K, not on page 1, and you have expenses to report that you didn't put on page 1, you might want to read line 13 to see what information that you have, what expense you have that will go on line 31. So let's go, because we went to schedule K. Those are the questions. Okay, so the instructions comes with instruction for K and K1. And you can read, when attaching statement to schedule K1 to report additional information to the partner, indicate there is a statement for the following. If an amount can be found, if an amount can be input on schedule K1 but additional information is needed, add an asterisk after the code in the column to the left of the entry space, and then for item that can't be reported as single dollar amount, enter the code as an asterisk in the column to the left and enter SCMT in the right column. So what I would say is read every single code under those lines to see how you should complete the schedule K1, because it varies. But right now we are looking for 13, and keep in mind that don't think we went that far. Keep in mind that all the schedule K1 total together should equal what you have on schedule K. So why I'm not finding. Okay, let's go down a little bit to see if you'll find what we are looking for. Okay, so interest, yeah, so those will be taxable interest, and once again just read it to see what you are, you'll have clarity depending on your situation. So we are looking for investment interest expense. So that does not include interest expense allocable to passive income. Investment income and investment expenses other than interest are reported on line 20A and line 20A and line 20B respectively. So just keep that in mind as well. But we are looking for L and B. So they have investment interest. So include on this line the interest property allocable to debt on property held for investment purpose. Property held for investment includes property that produce income unless derived in the ordinary course of a trade or business from interest. So if you have a mortgage on a property that produces income, the interest will go on line 13B, for instance. So dividend, annuity or royalty, and gain from disposition of property that produce those type of income or held for investments. Let's go down a little bit, and believe they say other than. Okay. Property held for investment include property that produce income from interest, dividend, annuity or royalty, and gain from the disposition of property that produces those type of income or is held for investment. So those are the type of income that you are generating with your property. So the expense, the interest expense, pretty much like the interest you are paying on the debt will go on line 13B. But once again, it's good you read it yourself to see how you understand it. And the interest, the investment interest expense, the investment income and the investment expense will go on line 20A and 20B as well. And they should have been already included up, but then like the income, and now we are talking about the expense. So now line 13D, if you didn't find, if you have expenses that will go on Schedule K and you didn't find where they will go under line 13, the other deduction, under deduction not included on line 12, 13, A, B, C, or 16P. So on the, and then you read. So if that's a deduction related to royalty income, you will use code L. And then it will tell you how you will report it on Schedule K1. And we can use an example. Portfolio, other, code L. So enter any other deduction related to portfolio income. So no deduction is allowed under section 212 for expense allocable to a convention, seminar, or similar meeting. Yeah, if you have portfolio income, seminar, trip that you take, expenses related to that are not going to be reported on that line because those expenses are not deductible by partners. So the partnership doesn't report those expenses on line 13D, and they tell you where that would go, but it's not why we are here. So online, so 13B, Schedule K, report the partnership distributed share with code I for royalty, code L for portfolio, and then there will be code W. And under every single one, they will tell you how you'll report it on Schedule K1. So if we go back, we have tax preparation fee, and we put it on line 13D, other deduction, because it's pretty much related. The activity is more portfolio income type of activity rather than really a real estate at this stage of the business for the activity conducted in 2020. So we have the amount on line 13D. You will put what you'll describe a little bit what the expense is, but then you'll have an attachment if you have more than one expense to detail it. So you have self-employment for 14A, you have 15A for credit to see if you qualify for any credit that will go in that section. You have foreign transaction, so if you conduct business, that should go in that side. On that side, you will complete it as well. You have alternative, minimum tax. Depending on what your situation is, you may not need to put anything on line 17A. So other information, you have line 18A, B, C, and C is non-deductible expense. So we saw seminar for portfolio income that is not deductible. So that will go on line 18C. You have 19A, distribution of cash or marketable securities. So distribution or other property. So those are distributions to the partners. And then you have 20A, investment income, investment expenses, and other. So if you have investment income, it will go on line 20A, and expenses will go on line 20B. Then you have others. But if you scroll up, we should have investment income. Depending on what the investment is. If that's an interest, it will go on line 5. If that's dividend, it will go on line 6. But then, I don't know if you can go back a little bit. So investment other than interest, I don't know where the interest will be reported on line 20A and 20B if that's an investment, if the income is from an investment. So now that we are done completing Schedule K, and once again, if your activity is a trade or a business, your information will go on page 1. And then the income or the loss, the profit or the loss will go on line 1 of Schedule K. And if you don't have interest on your bank account or anything like that, or royalty, then that you won't have anything to put on Schedule K, really, since the expenses and the income are reported on page 1. Unless you claim section 179, you will put it on deduction section here, which it will take into consideration. Okay, now let's come here. So now on page 5 of Form 1065, you have analysis of net income or loss. So it will take net income or loss. So combine Schedule K line 1 through 11 from the result. Subtract the sum of Schedule K line 12 through 13D and 16P. And you remember that on Schedule K, you have line 1 for income, for business profit or loss. And I told you that if you claim section 179, you should take that out of your Form 4562 and put it on Schedule K. It won't be on your page 1, but it will be on Schedule K line 12. So when you take the sum of line 1 through line 11, you will subtract out of that line 12, 13, and 16P. Total foreign tax. You will subtract that out of it, and that will give you the income or loss. So let's take a look at 16. So name of the country of U.S. possession. And then you have gross income from all sources. So if you are conducting business like in the US and another country, for instance, that will be all the income for all your revenues, pretty much. Gross income source at partner level. So that you may not need that if it's not related to you. That's an income related to a partner that is related to just that partner. So foreign gross income source at partnership level. And you have, and then you have passive category, general category, and you have interest expensive. So let's see here. So my note is for S corp, but the idea will be about the same. And let's see here, you'll have partners. I believe I'm looking for the passive. But if you go in the instructions, it will tell you what is passive, what is let's go back to, you'll read the instructions about the foreign transaction session and their activities under general category and activity under passive categories, and then you just follow the the instructions to complete what is related to your business. That's if you have a business outside of the US as well. So you'll have your loss on line 1, page 5 of Form 1065. And then that's pretty much analysis of net income or loss. So you'll have to divide that amount between general partners and limited partners.